So you love podcasts, and you want to listen to more amazing content, but you have no idea what to listen to. And your friends keep telling you about great episodes, yet you can never remember what they told you. Well, here's the answer. Good Pods. It's the social app dedicated to podcasts where your friends, podcast listeners, and favorite podcast hosts all come together to share on their feeds what they recommend and what they listen to. You can connect to others, bookmark episodes, start a conversation about the episode, connect to the hosts, and most importantly, listen to great podcasts right in the Good Pods app. Download Good Pods wherever you get your apps and start sharing with a community that loves to listen. Good Pods. It's where to connect and listen.
You know what always cheers me up? Rolled up aces over kings. Check raising stupid tourists and taking huge pots off of them. Playing all-night high-limit hold'em at the Taj. Stacks and towers of checks I can't even see over. And thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Hey, Thrive Loud listeners, Lou Diamond here. Hope you had a spectacular July 4th weekend. Some beach time, some ice cream, some hot dogs, maybe even some fireworks. Hopefully you got a chance to do that. Anyway, let's just look back at the week that was. Maybe you were on the beach listening to an episode with author Derek Cavagnano or CEO Janet Wishnia of American Blossoms Linens. And such a fun episode with author, actress, and filmmaker Wendy Wilkins, Sex, Love, and Cops. We also had Fernando Angulo, Influencer's Influence from SEMrush. Really cool guy, really interesting perspective. Hopefully you got a chance to listen to that. That was episode 482. So today we have a fun episode pulled from Bedside Reading's Authors That Thrive with Carla Malden. Amazing book and a great story and a wonderful person. You're going to like this conversation. And looking ahead, if you've been looking at the episode count, what are we at? Like 483 or something like that? We're getting close to a milestone episode, so stay tuned for some really cool things that we're going to do for Thrive Loud to celebrate that milestone. With that, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with Carla Malden, pulled from Bedside Reading's Authors That Thrive, here on Thrive Loud.
Welcome to Bedside Reading's Authors That Thrive, a podcast show that provides you exclusive access to top writers around the globe and how they are thriving through their writing, their passions, and their lives. Here's your host, Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to Bedside Reading's Authors That Thrive, connecting you to amazing authors that are thriving through their work and in their lives each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today, we have a featured author and screenwriter who has released her first novel called Heartache. She's written 2 previous books, a Brokenhearted Memoir of a Charmed Life, a fiercely personal account of battling the before and surviving the after of losing her first husband to cancer, and the critically acclaimed memoir, When Do I Start?, co-written with her Academy Award-winning father, Karl Malden. Please welcome from Southern California, Carla Malden. Carla, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Lou. Thank you for having me.
Truly an honor to be here. First of all, I wanted to say, as I said in the beginning, I was a big fan of your dad, great actor. And as you said, he was a great father as well. True, great dad growing up with him?
Absolutely. The best. It was a period of time when actors didn't really take their families on location with them. I think that's sort of changed. The protocol of that has changed in recent years. So there were long stretches where he wasn't home, but that was mostly when I was very little. And yes, the best, the absolute best.
Excellent. And I'll tap into this first just because we're on it. Co-writing his memoir together. What was that writing experience like for you? Because that's got to be an interesting project, working with Dad and putting all the words together.
It was not only a fascinating project, but it was really one of the great joys of my life, both professionally and personally. It took us about 2 years, and I would go over to the house and sit in his little over the garage study with him with my laptop, and we just talked about his life. And then I'd come home and sort of type it up and go back the next day and probe a little more and ask deeper questions about the same things. And we'd sort of take one step back and two steps forward. And it was fascinating and thrilling.
I would also imagine on kind of the flip side of this, the other book you had put together having to deal with the personal challenge and writing from that aspect of it. I guess, there was excitement in doing one project together and the other one might have been a little more therapeutic? Was that what it was for you?
That's an interesting question. I've often been asked since that book, AfterImage, has been released, whether it was cathartic. And it's a difficult question to answer because it didn't really exorcise any of the pain of losing my husband, but it was the process itself was healing in that I found grieving to be a very fractured and fracturing experience. I would be out to dinner with people, but I was really in the business of grieving, or I would go to a movie, but I was really in the business of grieving. And when I sat down to write, I was sort of in one place, kind of body, mind, and soul. So in that way, it was healing.
And I guess having been around entertainment most of your life, obviously being involved in putting films together, and then being a screenwriter, storytelling has always been at your core. Is that not true?
I think it is true. I always wanted to write. If I didn't know if I would do it professionally, but I always wrote. And then when it became a professional pastime, yes, there was a lot to draw on. There was a lot of storytelling in my house. Speaking of my father, I have a fond memory of Saturday mornings of having sort of breakfast in bed with him and my sister and sometimes my mom, and he would tell us all stories. So that it is something I grew up with.
And as you can tell, I did a big build up here, Carl. That was obviously you've been setting up the chance to tell stories. So what I think our listeners would love to understand in this new novel, Search Heartache, I guess what was the inspiration really behind it, or was it something building over cumulative amount of years that spewed out of you? I'm just trying to understand what was the clicking point, if you would, that said, this is what I want to write about?
Well, first I'll explain that it's a novel about disappointment as a result of overly high expectation. It's about a woman's kind of middle-aged crazies, but not without good reason. Her husband provokes her. So it's about infidelity in the cyber age, what constitutes betrayal in this cyber age. So just to give you some context, because the real answer to your question is, apropos of speaking about my other book, the memoir AfterImage, I had recently lost my husband. This was a number of years ago, and I began to notice a phenomenon amongst my circle of friends that there were a lot of divorces happening. Mm-hmm. Not just the sort of, getting rid of the starter marriage, but really long-term divorces. I think the term now they use is actually gray divorce, because, and I was angered by this. Having lost my husband and having had no choice in the matter, I was angered by these people that, to my perception, were just sort of cavalierly throwing something away that was very precious. So that was the genesis, the germ of it. And then my thinking on that topic actually evolved over the course of writing the novel, but that was the genesis.
So the writing process itself, Carla, I'm curious. We've had lots of authors on the program. Some are pretty much business-like, if you would. They're setting a clock to it. They're working a certain number of hours. Others, it's kind of when creativity hits you that you put pen to paper, for lack of a better word, even though it's more like fingers to keyboards. What is that process for you?
It really varies, Lou. I would say that I'm not quite as disciplined as I wish I were. So it kind of depends on whatever stage of a project I am in. I'm trying to force myself to be better about creating a really detailed outline, because Search Heartache I think I kind of learned to write a novel on my first novel, and it took me embarrassingly longer than I'd care to admit. And I'm hoping the next one, which I'm in the middle of right now, will not be such an arduous process. And to that end, I am trying to stick to a detailed outline. However, I also like to be a little gentler with myself, and I know that I do a lot of percolating. When I'm walking, when I'm exercising, when I'm going up and down the aisles at the supermarket, I'm percolating. And I think that that's sort of fallow time is when a lot of problems are solved in a story. So I try to realize that that's its own kind of work.
I've had this new question that I've started to ask the authors on Bedside Readings, Authors That Thrive, that I wanted to throw at you, and I think you could handle this. You ready for it?
I'm trying.
Okay. The voice of the story. Obviously, many novels and books are taken from a certain perspective, but as the writer, are you hearing the voice of the story, of the characters, if you would, as you're coming up with the content? Or are you being the marionette helping, or the puppeteer, if you would, helping to move the voice of the story? How is it? How are you getting the voice of the story out into the book?
I would say in general, it's more the former. It's more the characters take over in my head. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that's part of why my whole perspective on what I was talking about, on my feelings about people throwing marriages away, that's part of why that began to change, is because the characters started asserting themselves in my brain. And I realized they had no choice, given their backgrounds, but to react in the ways in which they were reacting to various situations. Now, I may have put them in these situations, but their reactions were spontaneous from them, if you will. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, in terms of the technical aspect of voice, I had originally written the novel in the third person, and it wasn't until I realized it was really a story that needed to be told in the first person that everything came into focus. And of course, that was a major rewrite, but well worth it, I think, because the story really needed to be told from the woman's perspective, and only her perspective, and only what she knew.
The reason I asked that question, Carla, was a longtime guest to go on Thrive Loud is a screenplay writer, Mark Bomback, very well known in Hollywood. And he is truly a screenwriter, and he's not a novelist. And he actually thinks as his content is going to be portrayed on the screen. To someone that's been a screenwriter and is now a novelist, do you think of writing your novels with it potentially being on the screen?
I didn't really have that in the back of my mind, though I think my years as a screenwriter served the novel writing process really well, in that I can't help but visualize things on the screen in my mind. And but the joy of novel writing for me now is being able to go into a character's head in a way that you can't in a screenplay. A screenplay is all about translating psychology into behavior and maybe dialogue. But with a novel, you can really go deeply into their head. And that's just a treat for me, because that's something I missed in screenwriting.
Carla, I love asking guests on the program this question. On days when you're not kicking on all cylinders, we're in the middle of COVID-19 as we're recording this particular episode. A lot of people are not doing that. You mentioned walking and doing certain exercise. Is there a certain practice you do, or an individual you seek out to help you get back on the thriving track when you're off your game?
I wish there was something that simple that I knew would be a magic bullet. I do take a lot of walks. I normally, when we're not in lockdown, take a lot of dance classes, but I've been just sort of jumping around my house a lot to music, doing some lovely streamed dance classes. I think it has a lot to do with moving my body, I guess, is the bottom line answer to that question. There is no particular person. I will sometimes talk things out with my husband. Sometimes not. It's the percolating. It's the doing something else and shoving the work to the back burner that seems to work for me.
Writing memoirs, writing screenplays, writing a novel. Is there one of those three that you like doing more than the other?
Well, I think probably whichever one I'm doing at the moment. I don't have a burning desire to go back to screenwriting right now. I don't have a screenplay that's taking shape in my head. If Search Heartache should become a movie, I'd be thrilled to write that screenplay. I think I'm enjoying the novel process right now. I don't know if that's just because that's what I'm involved in, but I'd put that at the top of the list at the moment.
Carla, I want to bring things to a close here with a real fun question here. Do you like music?
I love music.
Is there a certain song that's kind of like your pump-up song, your jam that you love to listen to, that gets you motivated, that helps elevate you to the next level?
You know what? Well, I'm a big Beatles person, a big Paul McCartney person. So anything Beatles, absolutely. But I have to say, I don't know if your listeners, I kind of hope maybe they won't be dealing with the lockdown when they hear this, but if they are, I recently discovered a song called Gotta Be Patient by Michael Bublé and Bare Naked Ladies and a Latin singer whose name is escaping me. And this has become my little ritual, is when I'm getting dressed in the morning, I play that and it makes me feel like I can get through another day of lockdown. So for anybody who doesn't know that song, it's very upbeat and I highly recommend it.
Karla Malden, this has been an honor for me. Truly a pleasure to have you on the program. Best of luck as it relates to Search Heartache and whatever the next novel is. And I'm excited to hear there's another one on the way. And I know we'll put all the links for our listeners to connect to the book and connect to you. And thank you for coming on Authors That Thrive.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
To make you dance until this ends. I just want to see my friends.
Thank you for listening to Authors That Thrive, brought to you by Bedside Reading. To learn more about today's guest, head on over to bedsidereading.com. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, or follow us everywhere on social media at Bedside Reading.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com. Follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Thrive Loud. Check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.